long road. Let's go.
This is a foolish mission.
It is a foolish mission, but we're going to do it anyway. Welcome to Enterprise at 8. That's right, where we are going to be covering Star Trek Enterprise. What are we calling it? Rewatch, I guess?
Yeah, the rewatch. The rewatch.
All right. It's been 20 years, guys. 20 years since this show debuted. And we're about to talk about Broken Bow, part 1 and 2, which was the pilot episode for Enterprise. With today, my co-host, Adam Woodward.
Hey, Jody. Hey, Kevin. Hey, Dave.
Sir.
We have both of our esteemed panelists, Kevin Millard.
Hello.
The man who loves this show so much he had to be on it.
That's right. I love it so much.
That's not true, is it?
He was knocking down your door. He was like, I need to be on that podcast.
Honestly, guys, the amount of texts I got from Mr. Millard there telling me that he wanted to be on this podcast was astounding. I think I got 0, but anyway, that's fine. But we're going to get a great, excellent critique take on things. And of course, everybody already knows Mr. Dave Mader, who is acting as our kind of producer, but also is a panelist for once, which is always nice to have.
Yeah.
Well, I guess not for once, but at least on this time slot.
But you're leading the discussion, Jody. This is the Enterprise podcast. So
today I am anyway. Maybe Adam will do the next one. We'll see.
This is your ship. I'm a lower decker here.
You're a lower decker. Okay.
I'm going to move in here just to represent it. I'm a lower decker.
Wow, you've even moved yourself down. That's interesting. Anyway. Speaking of downs, this particular series does get a lot of down votes. This is not the favorite Trek of everybody, let's be honest. However, we're going to bring some light to it and see if we can enjoy it, or at least find some good in some of the bad. So let's just get it all started, guys. What were our initial impressions of this episode? Let's start with Mr. Millard.
This episode is fine. I've always made it through both of the broken bows. It's after that I kind of fall off.
But you're going to stick with it, right? You're going to stick with us?
Of course. The only way I'll watch it.
All right. Awesome. This is almost like a weight loss routine in a way where we're forcing you to do something that you don't want to do.
Or it's like conversion therapy or something.
Conversion therapy, that's even worse.
But I think this series starts well. It's a solid first episode, except for the opening. I've always hated that. I hated that from the beginning.
We knew the opening was going to come up, guys.
The song.
Sorry?
Oh, the song.
I like the visuals of the opening, though. I think it's fresh compared to all the other ones.
I like the idea of it. I just hate.
Yeah, I like the timeline through all of the different types of enterprises and stuff like that. I think that was cool. But I agree with you, Kevin. The music is something to be feared and loathed.
But the end credit song is pretty good.
The end credit isn't bad. I still don't think it takes place takes the place of like DS9 and Next Gen and all that when it comes to orchestral. But
you know what? I gotta say, I found myself humming last week, and I didn't know which Star Trek I was humming. I had to go and play them. Oh, that's Enterprise. not Russell Watson. The ending credits.
The ending, which is also called the Archer theme. Like they actually referenced it recently on Discovery. I got the clip.
Yeah. Archer Space Dock.
The Archer Space Dock.
No, yeah, they play it. Oh, cool. I haven't seen that yet. So Kevin's just like, I've already agreed to this. Why did I agree to this? All right. Anyway.
Well, yeah, and like I know you haven't asked me this, Jody, but
no, it's fine, Dave.
That was like the biggest thing I found. The biggest like slap in the face when I watched this 20 years ago was that opening sequence, because like this was a prequel show, didn't really know what to expect out of it. B, it's got this opening song with like, I thought it was Rod Stewart singing.
Yeah.
None of the it's just like their names too. It just says like Scott Bakula, Jolene Blaylock. It doesn't say like Scott Bakula as Captain Jonathan Archer like all the other shows did. They always would put like the name of the characters. This was and this was going widescreen too. They were doing the 4:3 format. So there's a few things, a whole bunch of things that they were changing up here. And this is
Yeah,
only
this was not our normal Star Trek. This was the, we saw this and went, what the hell are we watching? Especially considering it was also on, I believe it was on UPN first, wasn't it?
right, which Voyager had been sort of near its end as well, or like last
On
couple
VPN, yeah.
seasons, and that had to do with like CBS and Viacom, and they were splitting apart at this time, and Les
Yeah.
Moonves was taking things in different directions, and there was a lot going on with the business of Star Trek at the time too. But like Voyager had just ended, like previous June or May.
Yeah, it wasn't far off, that's for sure.
But
They
that
talk-
was one of the complaints about the show back then is that you just come off of Next Gen into Voyager, and I don't know when Deep Space started, but it was a lot of Star Trek
Middle, yeah.
in a row. You'd been dealing with at least 14, 15 years of it at that point.
Yeah, franchise fatigue. That's basically what people were saying at this
Right.
point. Yeah. Plus, you also had, for instance, Dave and I were talking about this. You had First Contact just before this, if I remember. Or was
First
it
Contact,
after?
it's about 5 years before this, and First Contact is like
Yeah.
maybe at the very peak of Star Trek's popularity, right? Because at that point,
Yeah,
First Contact's one of the biggest movies. You got DS9,
one of the best Star Trek movies too.
DS9's doing its own thing, and like I remember like that cameo from the EMH in First Contact that showed like the Voyager recognition, and
Yes.
but I'd say by the time Voyager comes off the air. It was also just because I think Insurrection was not a well-received movie. I feel like there was just like sort of like this franchise fatigue that was going on.
Yeah,
you know?
and that was a big comment at that point. I've had enough of Star Trek. I need a break,
Right.
which is kind of weird to me. But
And this is also when Star Wars was like coming back. We had Phantom Menace in 1999.
And I think this is the problem that we have, because I think what happened is I think they wanted to kind of get some of that Star Wars vibe as well in this, and that's why we have kind of a more like there's canteens in this, basically. Like this episode even has a canteen in it, realistically. So like there's a
Rigel,
lot
yeah.
of kind of Star Trek, I mean Star Wars-ish kind of stuff in this as well, right?
My first impression is the only thing I really don't like is Archer. He's so adversarial with everyone.
he's also just got an inferiority complex. Like
Yes. Well, because he also explains in greater detail that like the Vulcans are constantly trying to be a pain in the ass. Like they're always stopping people from doing things. He felt that like, his dad was being oppressed by them essentially. And then that led to he actually is racist. Let's be honest. He's racist towards them. Or speciesist or whatever you want to call it. But that's really what he is. Like he starts off as that. And then he starts to later on in the series, he starts respecting the Vulcan people more. Which I think is kind of interesting.
I've got my own opinion on that because Kevin, you're right. It annoyed the crap out of me in this episode, just how much it went on and on and on into the second one. And it wasn't even at the end. I mean, he was still slamming to Paul. And then she goes, and then he realized that she actually did something, aren't we on our way back to Earth? Well, actually, no, we're not. And so I don't know. You're right. I can't stand him. That's the only thing.
No, I agree completely with Kevin. I think Archer is probably
I'm hoping it gets better. Like I'm hoping that his character at least gets a little better. See, I can't speak to what happened because I've not seen this.
He gets a lot more Kirky as we go.
Okay.
Which I don't know if you want to interpret that as good or bad, but he gets a little bit more adventurous, I think. And the thing that I like about him is he's more accepting of what's going on around him. Whereas he almost feels like in this episode, he feels like the entire weight of everything is on his shoulders. No one else is doing anything of importance. It's all him. And you kind of get that almost, God complex kind of thing from him in a way as well, I think. But it
feels like he's got a big chip on his shoulder. He's got to prove something the whole episode.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we're getting a quote. The thing that I like, and I don't know how you guys feel about it, is I like the fact that we're portraying the Federation obviously in its infancy in this scenario, but we're also portraying the fact that they're constantly screwing up in this episode. Like they keep doing things that are wrong, things that are just not a good idea to do, and they're doing it through the entire thing, which is kind of nice to see. You know, I'm so used to seeing, you had Picard doing everything correctly. You had, obviously Avery Brooks, doing his thing, and even to a lesser degree, Janeway did screw up a lot. Don't get me wrong, but by this point, she was the best captain there was. It's like all that. They end up making her an admiral even, but to me, I just think it's nice to see. To me, it's refreshing to see a Star Trek where everybody doesn't know what's going on. They don't know how to fix situations constantly, which is kind of, I like that. There's a scene where he's like, he's listening to a deck plate and he's like, something doesn't seem right here. It's like all these little stupid little things, but I thought that was kind of cool to kind of giving you a little bit of growing pains kind of thing.
Yeah. I also like how, I forget what his name is, keeps flying into stuff. Like he keeps bumping into,
like hitting things.
Yeah, like they're not so good at precision flying just yet.
Well, it's first warp 5 capable ship. Right. I like the fact that the when he's doing the inspection of the ship before they take off from the dry dock, when they're doing the inspection, actually it's that scene where he like kind of hits the shuttle off. But the shuttle itself is such a ridiculous design. But if you look closely, it's actually the same design that Zefram Cochrane used in First Contact. It's the exact same thing. It's just they've retrofitted it a little. So there's a lot of really cool callbacks, especially to the movies. It calls back a lot to the first two Generations movies. Not so much Generations, I guess, but there is some in there. But really, First Contact, a lot of the stuff that's in First Contact you see again. Probably because they just needed to, budget wise, they just needed to reuse some of this stuff. But I thought that those type of callbacks were really cool in this show.
Yeah, I thought that like the tension between the humans and the Vulcans was an interesting way to pick up this show. And I think that like, okay, the Vulcans were the first species that met humans, and we saw that at the end of First Contact, and that's in 2063 or so, and this is like roughly 80 to 90 years later.
Around 90.
And so you kind of hear about how a lot of things changed on Earth over the last many decades, and a lot of that's yada yada. But the fact that the Vulcans are their friends, and like even Archer's dad, and like these flashback scenes, he's like, "I told you not to call him pointy ears or whatever."
And I told you not to call him that, Jonathan.
Yeah, Jonathan. Be nicer to Ambassador Pointy.
And Ambassador Pointy's ship.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I could have did without some of these scenes. I'm not gonna lie.
Is young Archer that kid from TNG? One of the kids that
we're gonna have to look
at
the
one with Wesley, when Wesley and all the kids get abducted.
Well, that's like in season. That's in season 2 of Next Gen, which is in like 1988. This is like 2001.
Yeah,
so
I don't think it could be the same kid. He looks like him though, doesn't he? Yeah.
Jody, I think that was quite necessary to show that, that him as a young kid working with his dad,
Oh, yeah.
You got to see how long it took for the engines to be developed, and but also the hate that Archer had even as a kid for the Vulcans was just with him for years and years and years. So clearly they're just you're holding us back, damn it. But without the Vulcans, really, could they have moved forward? I don't know.
But that wasn't his father's hang up. That was his hang up.
No. I recognize that, Dave. I said his hang up.
No, but the question is, where is Archer getting it from? Because Archer obviously has either witnessed it or he's been told secondhand accounts that this is an issue. And, these guys are always holding us back. They're never letting us go out into the universe and stuff like that. And it's like, I like the concept of it. I just think the execution could have been a little bit better. Like when you look at this episode as a whole for like a pilot, if you're judging this as a pilot compared to other pilots, I think it's not a bad pilot. A lot of people say that the Voyager pilot's better, which I personally don't think so. I hate Caretaker. I think it's a terrible episode. But some people really enjoy it, and some people definitely say it's better than this. So, I'm curious to see what your guys' thoughts are on that.
I really enjoyed the opening sequence, with the cornfield and the Klingon and the crash and how that just opened was really great. I mean, there was lots of questions. What's going on? I was right away hooked.
Yep. Yeah. Oh no, I think it's a great draw. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a good pilot. I think its comparison to Caretaker is interesting because I think they were starting to figure out how to even launch a show with both of those. I think like if you look at Emissary, the 2-part beginning of D Space, and then also Encounter at Farpoint for TNG, those are much messier pilots. They are not. They got a lot more issues than either the Voyager or the Enterprise pilots do. I think with Enterprises, the whole thing I was watching this pilot 20 years ago thinking is like, okay, this is set before Kirk. Okay. And that was like the whole thing that Bakula kept saying in all of his press, like then and since then. He's like, they asked me to be the captain of the next Star Trek show. I said, not interested. They told me it was a prequel before Kirk. I was like, sign me up. And that's what Bakula would always say, right? I'm like, why is that the hook? Why is that a big deal?
Because he comes through Quantum Leap. He's got to have timeline shifting. Part of the thing.
Yeah, I think it was like this idea too, though. In this particular era, the end of the '90s, the beginning of the 2000s, that Star Trek maybe had lost its way, like through Next Gen and D Space and Voyager, or at least a lot of the fan base who grew up watching like original series repeats had fallen off. People like my dad had fallen off, and this was maybe a chance to win them back by going more to kind of maybe do more of a cowboy Star Trek, almost like a little bit more of a pioneer approach. Changing the colors back to yellow, like for command and like things like that to try to like.
I'm glad they did that though, because in reality, it doesn't. Anybody who goes from the original series to Next Gen automatically is confused by the color scheme because it's like, what? And then they changed some things, right? So I like the fact that they did that and they kept that consistent for this and obviously the original series to make sure it ties in correctly. So there is one elephant in this room when it comes to this episode, which is obviously the decontamination scene, which happens fairly mid-range in the first.
We got to
episode.
go back to the beginning though before we get.
Oh, you want to go back? Okay, let's go. You take it.
All right. So, Kevin, it opened up. We got a Klingon crashed on Earth, Missouri, of all places.
Oklahoma.
I thought it was okay, whatever. You're right.
Doesn't matter. It's all the same to me.
Rockabo, Oklahoma.
He's running through the fields. The Suleiman's shooting at him, and he's still running away. You got a farmer looking on. Ooh, what's going on? He grabs this really cool shotgun. I thought that was and charges into the corn. So I mean, at that point, are you hooked? I am.
Absolutely. It's a great open. Yeah.
100%.
I want to know what's going on. When like the
why is there a Klingon in a cornfield
kind of guys like the Suliban getting under the door, and it's an excellent open. It hooks you right away.
Okay, here's my answer to that though. Like I was like, why does this Klingon have ridges? Why doesn't he look like original series Klingon? The canon, Adam.
Because the makeup has gotten better since the 60s.
Yeah. We already done it with Next Gen, so we're good.
But this is before Next Gen.
Okay. I threw but
didn't we learn that there's different versions of Klingons?
Also, all the equipment looks more futuristic in this show than the original series. Like, just deal with it.
The LCD
it was the 60s. Like your dad always said, it was the 60s. We didn't know any better.
We didn't know what was going to happen.
You do notice though that the science stuff still has the thing where they have to look into it.
Yeah, there's little callbacks.
Don't understand why they need that. Especially when they have LCD screens coming up.
I think it would have been a big failure if they went back and did 60s technology in 1990.
Yeah, the
way it looked.
Well, and even if you look at stuff like Discovery and stuff like that, like even then, like the ships look way more, J.J. Abrams than they should be.
Well, yeah. Like I do
flares
think,
galore.
Because this was like in 2001, and they wanted it to at least look like it was 2001. Because we
also have to remember the big thing here, guys. This is the first Star Trek that was actually shown in high def. So This is one of the first high def shows. So with that, everything on screen has to look better.
And you know what? I agree with you. The Klingon himself, I mean, he was big and tall, and I feel like
tiny Lester Adams or Lester, what's his name? Tiny Lester something.
Yeah, he was Zeus in World Wrestling Federation in like the 80s. He used to
He was,
fight,
yeah.
he fought like Hulk Hogan and
He was
uh,
he was the drug dealer in the movie Friday as well.
yeah.
All right. So I mean, you got a big guy who looks like a Klingon should, and but again, what the hell is he doing on Earth?
Yeah,
Right.
It's a good draw. I agree with both of you guys. It's a very good draw.
Who are these green guys who can like go like Mr. Fantastic under doors?
Yes.
We did.
The
That was the
Suliban.
other thing too. Like, there's a few things they threw into this episode, like the Suliban, and also I guess the Denoblian, like in Phlox. Although I don't know, we learned his species name in this episode. But
No,
I was
I don't
like,
think we
well, why throw it in? Why throw this new species in? Why not use an established species that would be around this time? Why not make him a Tellarite or something like that? Why? These are some of the things I'm still asking myself.
Saving them for later, I guess, is probably the only thing I could answer. Throughout the series, they do go into a lot of the classic aliens. So especially the blue guys, what the hell are they called?
Andorians.
Andorians. The Andorians look awesome in this series. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
they look great. And
Right.
obviously,
and that's
Jeffrey,
one of the
what is
better
it?
episodes I think in season 1 that we're going to be watching many weeks from now. But I think like I was like, well, if this is like the early era of Kirk, like this is before Kirk was even born, then show me everything that would have been sort of normal to Kirk. Like that's kind of what I was wanting from it. But we ended up getting a lot of new alien species and a lot of new things we had never seen before. For better, I don't know, maybe for better or worse. I thought for worse in some ways because I was
Well, I think this gets back to the the Star Wars point of earlier, where Phantom Menace came out at this point. There was a ton of new aliens in Phantom Menace,
yeah.
and I think they wanted to draw some new blood that way, right? So we got Phlox, which I think is one of the best characters in the show, bar none. I think, and he just improves throughout the show. There's one episode where I think he's stupid, but past that, he's solid. So
Yeah, like I think Phlox is a fine character, and I think that he's well played. I just think like from a writing choice, why have these? Oh, hey, we're getting to
Sam
Gilligan's
Higdon
Island,
says,
Sam.
"Hey, we're gonna get to Gilligan eventually, all right, but not on this show."
Not this particular episode.
Look at that, Dave. Are you proud of me? I figured out how to do that.
So then we get into the series, and we got Trip and the Captain in that little pod.
Well, let's talk about all the characters because we're introduced to all of them pretty quickly, right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about the Captain first. We already talked about him.
Yeah.
But then you got the engineer, Trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always like these two. I think that these two work well in their scenes together. I think that actually the Trip, Charles Tucker III, whatever, he's actually one of my preferred characters on the show. I think that Archer comes across very bratty at times in a lot of his scenes, but I think that these two really try to make a good rapport with each other. He's supposed to be his version of Bones, right? Tucker is supposed to be sort of like his best friend.
Yeah,
Confidant.
I think actually this show would have been served by switching them.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Glad you got that.
Got
too.
Bakula
these
kind
two
of the grumpy
around-
engineer and make Trip the captain, and I think
That's a good idea.
That would have made it much better. I agree. Yeah.
Trip is a little more polished.
Yeah. For
Trip.
sure.
Trip is, in my opinion, I think he's probably the best character out of the gate. They knew what to do with.
He's way more likable. He's way more charismatic.
Yeah, he's almost like Southern Kirk in a way. Like he's not as sexy as him, but he's got a lot of the same type of things where it's like, everything's kind of fun and games until shit gets really serious, stuff like that.
Keep your shirt on, Lieutenant.
Kind of like, keep your shirt on, Lieutenant. Stuff like that. So I agree.
Yeah, like I think like he's wearing that hat, the NX-01 hat. Whatever happened at baseball hats and Starfleet uniforms, guys? That went away.
I'm sure we're going to talk about the uniforms eventually. But let's leave that till later.
I've got one comment on that. We're almost there. But so these guys are introduced. You already made the comment about he can't drive the shuttle because he bangs into the ship. And then the cracks. So you scratch my paint. But I kind of like it.
You scratched the paint.
I like the little shuttle. I know you guys didn't, but I like the windows up top. So you're looking.
Oh, I liked it. it's not your typical shuttle from any other Star Trek series. Like, it's a very rudimentary, very, very basic shuttle, which is really cool. I thought it was great to put that in. Like, it's literally just a missile cockpit. Like, that's all it really is. It's almost the same design as the Zephyr Cochrane one, which I think was on purpose. I think they wanted to do that, right? And obviously Zephyr Cochrane makes an appearance in this later on in the episode.
But don't you guys think that they did a great job in showing how much pride these two have in this ship? And
yes,
Yeah,
yes, they do. Yeah. Well, what about the ship itself? Because I guess we get to meet the ship kind of while it's in space dock here, right? Like,
we get kind of a glimpse, but we don't see it fly yet.
I was really worried this was going to be, the first time I saw it was going to be a 5-minute intro into the ship, just like motion picture.
No, they gave us what we wanted, but they didn't give us too much, which I thought was good.
Which, honestly, that scene from motion picture drove me bloody crazy.
It's one of the worst.
It's one of the worst ever.
It's like 5 minutes of glory shots.
And it's no talking. It's
for a ship. He's seen
the ship, then their faces, then the ship, then their faces.
Yeah.
And then
all you see is Kirk go. Wow. That's all it is. And every time it goes back, it's it's like, wow, that's some superb acting. The worst thing is he probably made like wicked dough just to stand there and do that.
So imagine 8-year-old Adam in the Burlington Mall movie theaters watching this with his parents, because I remember this and I was so bored for that
motion
picture, even especially for that scene.
Yeah.
Which you'd think an 8-year-old kid seeing something like a spaceship on on a big screen would be interesting, and I'm sure it was interesting for you for the first 15 seconds.
You're like, solid 30 seconds. It's a good scene, but
it just gets awkward. Minutes. It's like you're being stared at by a predator. It's gross.
Anyhow, they didn't do that. Thank God.
Yes, thank you very much.
Then they get a page say, "Hey, Admiral Forrest wants to see you." So we're introduced to a new guy.
Right. We get to meet all these admirals who wear ties.
There it is, Dave. I do not like the admirals.
But this makes perfect sense, guys. This is the transition between the military to the Federation. This is the transition period.
Okay, then
so
how come
it would make perfect sense because they should be in full dress when they're in this type of environment.
Why do the line officers only have buttons though? They don't have a tie.
Because the line officers aren't that important, Dave. That's the whole point. It's a hierarchy.
It looks like they're wearing so like the uniforms, which we get you see the flag officer version, which I actually think is nicer than the line officers version, which looks like a NASA jumpsuit. I get what they were going for.
What it's supposed to be.
With all these pockets and everything apparently these pockets don't even open. These zippers
they're just zippers.
They're just zippers that are meant to
they just put them in.
They're
make them look more well. And if you actually, I read a little thing on this, and the costume designer, unfortunately I don't remember the name. They said specifically they put it in to make it look more utilitarian, basically more utility.
Yeah, it's not. I would only tweak it slightly. I would probably change the color from blue to black for the base color, because I just think that the blue, especially for the science division with the blue piping on the blue, it just looks bad.
Yeah, it does. I would agree with you on that, Dave.
And these line officers ones with the ties and everything kind of around the wrists are it's whatever. But we also get Gary Graham, right? Is that what's this guy's name? The guy who plays Soval. He was from
I can't remember.
He was from that show, what was it called? Alien Nation. You remember that show?
Oh, that's you're right. Okay, I remember Alien Nation. The guys with the dots on their heads.
Yeah, he was the human. He was like the human detective guy.
He was the guy that was like partnered up with one of the alien guys.
Yeah. So here he plays the Vulcan Soval, who and he'll eventually play the mirror Soval near the end. But yeah, he's kind of and he's mentioned as having known Archer's father. So there's all this other background between him and T'Pol works for him. So
you get the picture. Then he's been on Earth since First Contact.
Maybe
for a while, at least 30 years he's been there.
Yeah, because he's got a really good tie-in with the humans, right? So at this point, but that could also be why Archer's so pissed off, because he's seen how this guy treats his dad back in the day, And now that his dad's gone, he's still showing resentment because he's still alive or something. We don't really get into it, but there's got to be something there, because Archer comes off as a racist. Like, he really does. He comes off as he's so pissed off at the Vulcans.
Not even just as a petulant child.
Yeah,
like
he's almost regressing.
Dad, and the flashback scenes kind of solidify that, because his dad the whole time is like, they're not that bad. Like, don't say that. Don't, like, he's
correcting him. But the question is, where is he getting it from? Maybe it was his mother. Like, who knows, right?
We never get the answer to it, do we? In this show, I don't think.
I don't think they ever explain it.
Other than
that I remember anyway.
They were impatient that, because he says, well, they want you to delay your launch over this whole Klingon incident. He's like, you couldn't even make up a new imaginative excuse, could you? You're always trying to delay us, always trying to keep us from space.
I thought when he said that, I thought, oh, has this happened before? Because this sounds like a new fucking thing.
Now, where's the logic in that?
Where's the logic in that?
Where's the logic? And like, I like how they just talk, like, they're in typical Vulcan smugness.
If you understood the complexities of interstellar diplomacy,
because they want to kill Klang here. They're like, well, we'll bring him back dead, and they're like, what? No,
because that's an honor.
They're like, no,
he died in battle.
That's dumb, Vulcans. We are going to do that. And then, like, T'Pol gets all like, her first line is she's like, well, you guys are so unrestrained or whatever. And Archer threatens to punch her.
You have no idea how much I'm restraining myself from knocking you on your ass.
Yeah, take that, T'Pol.
But let's be honest. How many times have we heard that in Star Trek? I liked that. I like that we got a little bit of the grimy shit going on.
He was going to knock T'Pol on her ass?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
He's a dick. He's a dick for saying it, but you know what? It's kind of cool to hear that.
I thought his raise your voice comment was a lot more clever.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't remember that one.
Because Soval gets all mad at him, right? And Soval's like, no, you can't do this. And
he goes, when your logic fails, you raise your voice.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, I remember that now.
That was a better moment, I think, for Archer. Yeah. But then he gets all like kind of petty with T'Pol because, she's smug.
Archer in this series gets more likable after the first season.
Yeah, but
in my opinion, somebody kind of slapped him or something. I don't know.
If I was one of the admirals, I'd be embarrassed by my captain who's talking to the ambassadors like this. This is
yes.
I think Forrest is. You hear it at the end where he goes,
we've been deferring to their judgment for 100 years.
John. Don't say that, John.
Smarten your ass up, John.
Come on.
I'm going to knock you on your ass. That's what he should have said. Yeah. And then maybe, make a call to some other admirals to do a team up there or something.
But in the end, Archer gets what he wants. He says,
he does, but he doesn't get it the way he wanted it. He wanted to be in control, and then it turns out that he wasn't in control at the end, which is kind of interesting, I thought. I like the fact that T'Pol really was running the show. And that was the thing he did not want to happen. Right? So in a way, he kind of got his just desserts. He kind of got told as well, but he still technically got what he wanted.
So what do you think of T'Pol? Let's talk about her.
That's what I was kind of segueing into. But it's T'Pol. I think T'Pol in this episode is terrible. I think she's just, I don't know where they're going with this character at this point. I remember my initial reaction to her was, wow, I hope she's not on the show for very long. I actually remember that. So, but she definitely grows on you for sure. Like later on in the series, oh my God, she's much better. So.
I really like her from the start. I think that, she's playing that typical Vulcan smug role, but like they all do that. Like there's not much. I thought she was very committed to the part. I thought she was a really good Vulcan throughout the show.
Like if we're sorry, go
she was one of the better Vulcan. Like out of the three that are shown there, she was the strongest one for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, I think her dynamic with Archer is kind of up and down, and like her romance with Tucker is this whole other thing. But I think that I think she's fine. I think she's one of the better cast members here. And you're not supposed to like her, right? Because she's supposed to be this adversary to Starfleet almost, but she kind of like, even by the end of this episode, this pilot, you're supposed to like understand that, well, even though she doesn't always agree with these humans, she'll she'll do what's in the best interest of the crew, and she understands loyalty and whatever.
Well, I think we get a glimpse of the fact that we thought she's like this kind of stuck-up person who literally has her own agenda, but at the end of the show, you kind of get the idea that she really is an asset. She's an asset, even though it didn't look like she was going to be. It turns out she is an asset, and later on in the show, they really show that, because what ends up happening is she ends up giving them vital information for a lot of things, like how to deal with certain like certain aliens, stuff like that. So I think overall, even though at the beginning of the first episode and even midway through, even into the second episode, you really have this kind of I think they almost wanted you to kind of hate her. Like she was the enemy to Archer essentially. And then at the end of it, like, to me, that's how I felt anyway. But the end of it, you kind of get the grasp that she really is the only one that has her shit together, other than maybe Trip.
She seems like the most adult. Because
I guess
like,
that's a good way to say
it. She's like, this is the dumbest mission I've ever been on. She says that a few times throughout it, right?
Yeah.
And
she's like, this is so stupid. Why are we doing this? Like, this is dumb.
Right. And the other character we meet in this scene is Phlox, right? Because he's the one tending to Clang. He's kind
Best
of
character in the show.
Yeah.
So is he even Starfleet though?
No.
They even said he was on an exchange. He's on an alien exchange program.
Right.
Yeah.
Medical exchange. Yeah. He's learning about all the other species, right? So
He especially likes the Chinese food. Have you ever tried it?
Yeah, he likes Chinese food.
The Chinese.
But like, to me, it's odd here that like Archer picks him sort of randomly to be their medical officer. You know, this is Earth's first Warp 5 ship. This is a big deal, and it's the first officer is not even a member of Starfleet. The medical officer is not human. There's some questions.
But I think that's supposed to. I think that's supposed to show the rush that they had.
Yeah,
right?
but it's also showing that Archer recognized the value in having an alien doctor who might know a little thing or two about other species, but he didn't see it with DePaul.
No, he gets kind of.
But that's because I think. But I think that's because the whatever you want to call it, I'm calling it racism, but whatever you want to call it, I think that's overpowering it. Right? Archer can accept the fact that he can have an alien, and I think it makes perfect sense. But he can't accept a Vulcan because Vulcans are nothing but bad to him. Yeah, that's what I think. So
right, and the reason she comes along at all is because they want their star charts, right? They want the maps.
Yeah, right. Essentially, she's just a guide. That's all she really is. She's the only one that maybe can even interpret some of them.
Chaperone.
Yeah, she's more of a chaperone to kind of make sure he doesn't do anything too stupid that's going to really affect the human alliance.
In this episode, I mean, the success of this episode for the Enterprise crew had a lot to do with her.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to put that one up. Sorry. Kevin's like, I'm out, and he logs out. I will touch the sky. Kevin, I have one question. Will you touch the sky?
No. Just no.
All right, well, let's keep going with the characters here.
Okay, then in the next. Sorry,
I'm guessing when Kevin sees the skip intro button show up, he just presses that real fast.
I first when I watched this episode, I watched it just to make sure I hated it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you.
I skipped the second episode.
Yeah.
And we'll be doing so for all subsequent episodes.
Kevin, I'm a fan of the show, and even I can't go through the intro, so it's I'm with you. And you know what? The intro is a lot better if you mute it and you just make up your own words. You just mute the music, just watch the visual. It's like
the visuals are great. Like I think we already
the
said
visuals
that.
are great.
I like it. Here's my confession. I actually like it.
That's okay, Dave.
Oh,
I like it too.
That's it.
Actually.
That's it. You're gonna fall Babylon right off the internet.
So
I like Babylon 5 as well. Okay.
Right. Anyway, let's keep going, guys.
We meet Reed and Mayweather in the
these
next
are the
scene.
two that I wanted to talk to you about next. Yeah. So Reed and Mayweather, which in my opinion are the least covered of all of the characters on the show for the first season, and even just this episode. which obviously we'll get into later on in the episodes. But we obviously know Mayweather he's the son of a freighter ship captain, from what I remember.
Yeah.
And he basically grew up on freighter ships doing long haul travel. So he's no stranger to zero G and stuff like that. There's even a scene later on where he's sitting around. He's sitting in like a sweet spot of the ship, which I thought was really cool.
Like being in the
like
womb.
being back in the womb. Right?
We all remember, right? We all remember being back in the womb.
Oh yeah, absolutely, all the time.
Exactly like the sweet spot of a ship.
You know what? Maybe by the time technology gets to this point, Dave, maybe they will remember. Who knows? Right?
Okay, but talk about technology. Like the fact that they put like the next scene also involves the transporter, right? And
yes.
I thought that they could have chosen not to put transporters in this show. Like they could have just done it, but they choose to add it here, and it becomes a plot device of this episode when
they do, and on top of that, they also stress how absolutely terrible they are, which I think is great.
Yeah,
they're like, yeah, no, it works. It works great on inanimate objects, but like, don't put a person through them.
No, he's like
that's
no,
a bad idea.
But that's the dialogue. They're like, you can go through this now. It's safe for humans, even armory officers and helmsmen.
He wouldn't even put his dog through this thing.
But he wouldn't put his dog through this thing.
Yeah, because Archer's a bit old school, and he's not going to do that, right?
He might put a Vulcan through it, though.
You put a Vulcan through.
Well, later on, I think we do, don't we? But yeah.
Well, he goes through it at the end of this episode.
Yes.
And when they rescue him, he's like, oh my, woof.
He's like, holy shit, are my balls still there? All right, we're good. You know, so it's that would be my biggest fear, quite honestly, is things, unless they can enlarge things, I'm not interested.
But I guess it came down when they were writing the show, they're like, it's Star Trek, you have to have transporters, but do you?
Well, I don't know if you have to have them, but I think it's yet another callback, right? Even though it's technically a call forward, but I think it's the start. Like transporters seem like like in the original series, they seem like such a normal thing. Like everybody was okay with them. Nobody really had a problem with it other than maybe Bones. But well, Pulaski didn't like them either, but Pulaski didn't like anything. So let's be honest. And we didn't like Pulaski, so it worked out well. But with that, I think it was nice that they put it in, but they made it more rudimentary. They made it more, it just got certified for human use. It's like, fuck it, I'm still not going in that thing. It's like, and they're literally kind of almost to that point of saying that, right? So, but there's a lot of filler scenes in these two.
Okay, so
the two
here's
shows.
my problem with Malcolm. I find he's like the that military guy who just wants to blow shit up.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he has the patience or the temperament to be in space dealing with new aliens and all that sort of thing.
But we also have to appreciate the fact that we're dealing with a new mission in this scenario. It's not something that they've done before, and they don't know what they're going to experience. So you kind of almost want a guy who's willing to hit the trigger.
Yeah, but okay, great point. So after going through Next Gen and Voyager, well, Voyager was a little different, but
a little.
But you get the impression that we have a Starfleet is a better sensibility, and we want to be curious before judgment, almost, like let's find out about things before we go and start.
Well, that's implied, but let's be honest, Kirk never did that.
That's true.
Right.
But to that point though, like there's a lot of people who have never seen original series, and like this is 2000, right? Is that
2001?
Yeah. 2001. Yeah.
Like
it literally launched 2 weeks after 9/11.
Assuming your dad was a 10-year-old during the original series, I mean, at this point he's 50 or in his 50s, right?
Yeah, like, and this didn't bring him in. He wasn't like, I gotta watch Enterprise. Looks like they're back to basics, or he was never gonna watch this, right? So it's, I think Malcolm Reed he's like, I don't know, he's the British guy. He's the he seems too old to be here, but he's
here. A lot more utilized in season 3 and 4. In 1 and 2, he's kind of always the guy who they're like, okay, well, we need to blow some shit up. He's like, oh, okay, cool, let's do that. Let me go get those photon torpedoes ready, or whatever they call them this time, right? It's with that. Well, actually, the photon torpedoes I think were actually introduced in this show.
Yeah,
So
they
it was
have
new technology
photonic
for the ship.
torpedoes at this point.
Photonic torpedoes, that's right. But it's, you know, I agree with you, Adam. I think he's kind of the loose cannon of the crew. He's the guy who literally is going to shoot first. But in a way, I think when you're dealing with this type of environment at the beginning stages of this exploration, that's kind of the guy you have to have there, because it's the only guy you have, because you have no idea what's going to happen. So you kind of almost want a guy who's willing to just say, yeah, I'll kill thousands of people. It's fine. You know, I'll hit the button.
Is that what he did?
But this is
Well,
exactly what
they killed
Vulcans-
people through the series. They killed a lot of aliens.
Yeah, they did. But that's exactly what the Vulcans are trying to avoid with letting them go into space so fast.
Exactly. Yeah.
Their gregarious attitude. Yeah, and the other thing I was thinking too is, like, I think that Mayweather is sort of this underutilized character, really. Like watching him in this episode today or tonight, watching it, I'm like, by the end of this fourth season, he's barely used at all.
He's
Mayweather.
the Ensign Kim of the first 2 seasons of Voyager.
Right, but like I feel like that was a mistake, because I feel like this character maybe had more potential, but they maybe, I don't know, they wrote him out.
I think they wanted him to be kind of like a little bit expert in space travel, and then they never utilized him for anything. Like, he was just kind of there. You know, like, I can't even think of, like, through the entire series. Yeah, who weather. Very good point. You know, I think the character itself could have definitely went a lot further, but you know, it's
They try through, you know, I think the first and second season, but then they give up on him.
Yeah, he's just kind of in the background for the most part,
And he's very likable. Like, he's a very likable character.
He's
I
interchangeable with Yoshi, in my opinion,
in
which we
this
haven't talked
one,
about yet. But.
I like that scene
Hoshi,
with
sorry.
him. That scene with him where they're talking about the Klingons sharpening their teeth before.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's like, didn't you read that? And just the acting, like the look on his face when he does
he's
that,
like,
like realization that he's not kidding.
He's
It's
like, holy
excellent.
shit, we aren't hauling shit here. We're gonna get killed.
He's like, I thought we were just sick guy home. This is supposed to be a cakewalk, you know?
Yeah, I thought we were just gonna, you know, go buzz around and then, you know, come back, you know, but no, it sounds like we're gonna die. Okay, great.
Yeah.
You
So-
know, let's fire it up.
I thought their scene was great. I thought that it was good introduction to both
I agree.
characters in that case. And then in the next one we see Archer puts on the civvies to go get Hoshi.
Yes, which in my opinion is probably the worst crewmate in the first season. She is just, you know what? I understand why she's there. She's made out to be like this amazing interpreter, and she's constantly fucking up in the first season. Like, she's screwing up everything. Like, which I get it. She's got like the first day jitters kind of thing, but it's, I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel about this character, but I definitely could have lived without her.
I think, okay, in terms of what her function is in the crew, I think it's good. I think that the idea of making the communications officer in this era more relevant, more of a translator, linguistic, because universal translators aren't as sophisticated. I think that's smart. I think it gives a lot more agency to like characters like Uhura retroactively, because like it's like, oh, their job actually is really important to kind of how. But by the time we get to next gen, Worf's like, I don't know, we're being hailed. I just have to hit a button, right? You know, but with her, you know, I don't know. He's like, well, I'm going to recall you to Starfleet and whatever. And she's, I don't know, like he kind of almost twists her arm to join the mission.
No, but the way he got her was nothing to do with twisting her arm or making her, forcing her to join.
No, he's playing back some Klingon, and she's never heard it before, right?
Yeah,
So
she's
she's
the first
interested.
human to speak to a Klingon, and
But
that's what gets.
I don't mind her, Jody. I think that
It's the first season of her. Just drives me mental. Every time I see her on screen, she just irritates me, and I don't know why. I think it's just because I don't feel past the one thing she can do anything else. Like, she's always kind of like, she's, you know, there's a scene is it in this episode where they have to go into like the spacesuits, and she's like, I'm very claustrophobic or something like that. Maybe it's the second episode, I don't remember. But there's an episode that basically she's in the environmental suits, and they're pretty much the exact same suits from First Contact, and she's like, oh, I'm really, you know, claustrophobic and stuff, and they start talking about this, and it's like, why do I care? Why are you even in a spaceship at this point? You know, it's like, it makes no sense why you're here.
I think
There's
some
got
of
to
her
be more
stuff,
than one interpreter.
She's got a few things in this episode where she's like, is the ship supposed to like shake this much? And later on, she's near the engine, or like Archer's on the engine, and she's like, "Are you allowed to be that close to the engine?" And for me, they mostly don't land. I agree that they're kind of like, ugh.
Yeah. I think that's what kind of irritates me. Is she just kind of rubs me the wrong way.
They give her they give her this dumb character trait that she doesn't really seem to own very well. But she can she do a bird vibration?
She can do a verb vibration, like there's
With
no
a little
tomorrow.
click at the end. Yeah.
For sure. She's even got the click. Yeah.
Anyway,
no,
so
I agree. So
that's Hoshi.
I think that's all the cast in this scenario. I think we've covered everybody. So shall we start getting into plot points here?
Yep.
All right. So we start off obviously with the Klingon. They're going to have to return them, all that. We've already talked about all that. At this point, we get Yoshi. They take off into space. Okay, that's pretty much it. We've covered up to that, I think. So the next, I think, is I guess we need to talk about Zephyr and Cochrane for a minute. Actually, I see you have it kind of almost queued. So there's one part where there's actually a callback to Zephyr Cochrane, which is played by what's his name?
James Cromwell.
James
Cromwell. That's it. Guy from Babe.
Soon to be played by Davin Skillhorn, but yes.
Yes. I understand there might be something in the future on that, which I'm sure you'll talk about later. So either way, I think this was a good callback. The only thing I didn't like was the "go boldly" part. Drives me mental every time I hear it. He does this speech and he says "go boldly" instead of "boldly go." Absolutely hate that, but I know they did it for a reason.
This engine will let us go boldly where no man has gone before.
Where no man has gone before. God, that drives me nuts every time I hear it. Thoughts?
Man.
To me, it's like it's about the minimum you could do here was somehow tie it into something that comes later or before. I think for this is a Star Trek spin-off show, right? So
it is, yeah.
But
it's also a prequel, so that's the problem that they really have, right?
Yeah. So I guess Zephyr Cochrane was the logical one. They get James Cromwell to come in, and he does a good job here, I guess. But I'm not as inspired maybe as I should be. I'm not. It doesn't have the weight of it that I would like it to.
I think I might have enjoyed it a lot better 20 years ago.
Yeah, now it's like, well, if I want to see this, I could just watch, First Contact again and see James Cromwell as Prime. I don't need to see this part, even though this only was shot like 5 years after the movie. But still,
I think Kevin had something here.
Yeah,
right. Because
Kevin?
No, it's fine. It's not. I don't know. I'm not down on it. I like his performance here, and the go boldly. I mean, I think they have to do that. They can't just say the words verbatim in every.
You don't think so, eh? Okay.
No, that would
like
be
I know they did it on purpose.
Nose.
Obviously, they
Yeah.
did it on purpose, but
I think it's fine.
It rubs me the wrong way every time I hear it, but that's fine.
Yeah, just when he's like, so this was 30 years ago for them.
Yeah, 30 years for them.
So this is this is 21, let's say 100 years from now.
Yes.
And what is that? 60 years after the events of First Contact?
Yes, 70, yeah. Around 7 years.
So the guy we saw go up with Riker and Jody in the Phoenix, he's 60 years older at this point, given this speech at this dedication.
So he's looking pretty good, let's be honest.
Maybe too good is my point.
Oh, okay. I see. I thought he looked all right.
He's looking a little too not dead.
A little too not dead. Well, they live longer,
And he's going to end up with the companion on that planet. Like we'll see him in original series. He's going to pop up there, de-aged, right? So this is, I guess, his little last hurrah on Earth, canonically, before he went off to
live with somewhere else. Yeah,
a space cloud.
But I'll tell you the one thing that really bugs me about this entire 2 episodes: the reference to the temporal Cold War.
Okay,
they don't do anything to explain it. They do nothing for the audience in this other than there's a guy talking to another guy in a room and everything's phasing all over the fucking place. That's it. That's all they tell you. So as somebody who didn't really understand what was going on, you're looking at this and you're going, what? Now, if you're a diehard Star Trek person, you'd probably get the gist of what it is, because we have seen temporal stuff, obviously, in DS9, stuff like that. So it's obviously there. But if you're trying to draw newcomers, I don't think this is the scene you're going to draw them with.
No, I agree that the Temporal Cold War was an interesting concept. I think, especially since this was a prequel series, and I think that they knew as a prequel series, we know that it's all going to work out for them because it's the prequel. Like, you know, why is Enterprise not going to do well, or not, like, you know, blow up, or they're not going to, you know, have the first Federation? Like, we know by the time Kirk's happening, it's all, you know, going well. But the Temporal Cold War throws this thing into it where you're like, oh, well, maybe time travel, maybe time is being rewritten here, maybe the future's uncertain, so therefore there are stakes in the show. But we know that they never really pay off this Temporal Cold War properly.
I was just wondering when Tasha Yar was going to show up. I was wondering when Denise Crosby was going to show up as somebody.
I saw her actually as one of the Vulcans.
I don't think so, but
no, in the beginning scene when they're in that room and they're all, I thought she was one of the. I had to go back and look. Is that Denise?
Oh, really? I'll have to double check that. I didn't notice it, but you know, the minute they start getting into the temporal and the Temporal Cold War stuff definitely gets more interesting later on in the series. But to put this in at the beginning of the show, and no one knows what's going on, and they don't explain anything. Just kind of, you know, the Suliban is teamed up with them in a way, but that's all you really know.
Didn't you feel like that was almost like again, a nod to Star Wars, pardon me, with, you know, how they speak to the Emperor?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was about to say that, but I'm glad you threw that in. Because
I thought about it last night, and, you know, I was watching it.
Well, and Dave and I, before the podcast even started, we were talking about, you know, we think this is kind of a mesh, right? And I think in a lot of ways, I think it was. And that's probably why a lot of diehard Star Trek people don't like this series, because it really does nod away to a lot of that stuff, right? It really kind of goes back into more of the kind of serialized kind of, you know, fun shows like the Flash Gordon type of stuff. Like they even do stuff kind of like that, which is kind of sad when you think about it. But, you know, for this type of thing, you know, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
He thought this was a Voyager podcast from the perspective of the Pac-Lads. His mistake.
Wow. Okay. I see.
There were no Pac-Lads in Voyager. But
yeah, like honestly, you would think he would know that. He only runs a podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway,
We tricked you, Janeway.
Yeah,
we tricked you, Janeway. Anyway, hey, guys, seriously, we gotta calm down here.
We tricked you, Janeway. We never wanted peace. Rumdar was a spy.
Oh, come on.
What did you learn, spy? The Enterprise has the biggest bathrooms ever.
Yeah. Oh boy, this is just going downhill really quickly, isn't it? All right.
Yeah, the Temporal Cold War. I thought it was kind of cool even to watch this again. I was like, oh man, I wish they had paid this off. I wish we'd found out who that mystery man was, and like the
theory is it's RoboCop.
It's Peter Weller.
Yeah, it's Peter Weller.
Which
But
Peter Weller?
It's not
he played
the guy who's running Mars at the later part of the season.
The guy we see later, not like Admiral Marcus.
No, not Marcus,
from Star Trek Into Darkness.
No.
Okay.
But speaking of terrible scenes, if you look behind me, we'll be seeing an example of the worst scene in Star Trek.
No, not at all.
What are you talking about? This is terrible. This is not Star Trek. I'm sorry.
This is sliding down the corridor in your socks.
Yeah, this is the socks on the Borg ship moment for this series right here. So anyway, obviously we're talking about the decontamination scene, where they have to spread gel for some strange reason. We live in a world where you still have to use gel for this. You know, we have working transporters, we have various other things, but we still have to spread gel on each other manually, might I add, which makes no sense if you're radiated. But anyway. Yeah, because somebody might be more radiated than the other.
Yeah, they
Makes
they
no
got them in
sense.
their underwear a few times in this scene. Or this
Now, don't get
episode.
me wrong. I have no problem seeing T'Pol like this. Okay, it doesn't bother me at all. I am very comfortable with this, but it's still I don't know if this belongs. This is what bit it for a lot of people for this series, was just this scene alone. So if you look up all the people that have gripes about this is like the number one thing.
This is
that
the
pops
least
up.
of my worries.
and
in this
the
whole
theme
show.
song, like Kevin has pointed out.
No,
I-
this is very low down my list in terms of things I have an issue with. But-
I like this
Really?
scene. I'm happy with this scene. Like, it's
I like
good.
the concept of the scene. I just think the sexualization of it just didn't need to be there.
No,
Like,
but-
obviously, T'Pol is essentially 7 of 9 for this series, so I get it. Okay, I get it. We're living in a world where Star Trek has to have sexualization now, and that even started in DS9.
Man.
Let's be honest.
No, it started in the original series.
It's been
The
on
original
all the Star
series,
Treks.
Yes, but
All
then
the-
Next Gen kind of undid it.
Well, it was Deanna Troy in Next Gen.
Oh, okay.
No, Next Gen
That
did it
does for you.
with aliens. With
Well,
Yeah, it was always
aliens.
the aliens. Yeah,
With they're always running in their little flippity shorts.
true.
Hmm.
True. So yeah, I guess
Um,
maybe I'm being oversensitive about this, but
DS9.
I-
It was Dax, but it was also the Dabo girls. It was
the Dabo girls more than anybody.
Yeah, but this scene
So-
actually on the heels of the dancing girls eating the bugs.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're almost there. We're almost there, actually. Yeah. So, but yeah. So we go to. Oh yeah, we're really close. Now that brings me up to a uniform thing. Dave, how do you feel about the away jackets?
I'm okay with the away jackets. Why no away gloves?
Why no away gloves? That's a very good question.
They were going into a cold weather atmosphere. You
It was
want
a
your
cold
hands.
environment. Yeah.
You need to protect those hands. You're not gonna have the
And they're
dexterity.
humans, so they're gonna get the frostbite.
You don't give them frostbite. Give them, if you're
That's
gonna give
right.
them a jacket, give them some nice gloves. At least some light line.
I like
gloves.
the jacket, but I don't think we needed to have the quilted design. I think that was a little
Um,
far, but
Yeah, like
we're not there yet,
I thought that these like little jackets they gave
There
them
they
to
are.
wear, they're fine. There's
Yeah,
no
good, man.
rank on them, but that's okay. You know, I can live with that.
you don't need a rank.
Even
You're all the
T'Pol.
But again, this makes perfect sense because in the military, when you're in a foreign environment, you don't generally wear rank patches. You generally take them off, so that way they don't know who to shoot at.
right.
So they shoot at everybody instead of just the generals, right?
Gotcha.
So
Yeah,
a lot
I
of the
think that-
generals had patch covers and stuff like that, right, to make sure that they wouldn't be identified. So
Yeah.
because obviously the enemy wants to take out the higher commands, right? So.
Of course, got to cut off the head.
Now
of
the
snake.
question here though is if you're going to a foreign planet, and I mean foreign in this scenario, it's different when the humans understand what insignias mean, but these things might mean absolutely dick all to every alien out there. They're like, oh, why do they have dots? Oh, who cares, right? So I guess in a way your point is
Why
still
do they
valid,
like
Dave.
yellow pipes on their shoulders?
Yeah. Why does this guy have yellow? This guy has red. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not going to
So.
mean anything to them. Yeah, so I'm okay with those. I'm okay with T'Pol's version. I think that like costume wise and like set design wise, I don't have a lot. And the ship too. We didn't really talk a lot about the ship itself.
Well, let's talk about the ship then.
I
Okay.
really like the bridge. I think the bridge is great.
The ship,
I think the bridge is perfect. I
the
think
ship
it's
is
probably
too
the best
sleek.
bridge. Really, you think so? Eh?
I think it's too sleek looking. I think it's basically an upside down Akira class.
Yes. Yeah,
It's
I would agree.
It's got its deflector in the front, which is fine, but it just looks very advanced. It looks very advanced compared, and I've watched a lot of videos and different things with the designer of the ship because they were saying that the argument was, does this look more or less advanced than like Kirk's Enterprise, and a lot at the time I would have said like I feel like it looks more advanced. It's got like it has that gray darker look that like Voyager and like Enterprise E had, and a lot of the era like this era.
Yeah, but I think it's dark for a reason in this because the technology doesn't allow it to be anything else. I think it has to be this material, whatever it's made out of. And he did mention that there is paint, but you don't see much of it. So are they painting it this color, or is this actually what it's made out of? I guess is the real question. But the bigger issue here is the fact that we have the first HD show. They can't put an Enterprise model on it like from the original series because it's just going to look terrible. So they have to make it look better.
Yeah, I like this ship. I don't have a problem with stuff looking more futuristic than the original series, just because, again, there's just such a gap in years.
Yeah.
Between
It's
when
40
it was,
years.
yeah, like.
Well, and if
You're
that was the
using
scenario,
original
what would
series as
Discovery look like? Right?
inspiration, not trying to fit this in stylistically in a like, I don't know how to say
Well,
it.
the ship is always a character in the show, right? Like it's always a
Yeah.
character. It's very definable. It literally is the show.
I think
Because
honestly,
everything
guys,
takes
it would
place
have
on it.
been very disappointing if they had shown something in 2000 that looks pre
More basic.
1968 or 66.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what am I don't even know what I'm looking for exactly. But when I look at it, it looks tactical. It looks modern. It looks
But I
sleek.
think that's what it has to look like because they don't know what they're up against. Later on, the Federation knows what they're up against. So at this point, they can have science vessels that are designed a certain way.
Hey.
They can have exploration vessels that are a certain
Remember
way.
the Next Generation episode Relics, where Scotty came back and
Yes.
he went
Dyson
and
Cube
created
one.
the
Or Dyson Sphere. Yeah.
right, and he created the Enterprise bridge in the holodeck.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, boy, that looks really crappy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more talking about the outside of the ship than the inside of the ship. I think the inside of the ship
The only
looks
thing
fine.
that bugs me about this entire ship is the deflector disc. The deflector disc drives me mental, but how could they do it any other way? Because it's a flat ship. It's a very flat
flat
ship.
saucer looking ship.
Yeah,
And the
it's a flat
nacelles look
saucer.
amazing. The nacelles are pretty much the same. And
I like the nacelles
Yeah.
because they do kind of play into what the original Enterprise looked like.
Yeah, the separate red lights inside.
Exactly.
the-
Yeah, and they have that
the-
kind of gassy look to them as well, which I think
Mhm.
is kind of cool too.
Even if they had just made it like the same color as the original Enterprise, I think I would have liked it more.
Yeah, you
I
don't
know
really
what
like the
I
dark
can
ships, right? Like
It's too dark.
yeah.
It is a dark ship for sure,
It's-
but I think that's more because it's utilitarian. It's a utility thing.
Yeah.
I'm not totally sure. It's well, you know,
and
later
that
on we have.
point, though, Jody, to that point, they transfer that into the interior very well. It is a
Oh
utilitarian.
yeah.
It's not a luxury.
Oh
ship.
yeah. The LCD
Yeah.
panels have buttons on them. You know, they're essentially just
The quarters
refurbed-
are
they're
very
refurbed LCD monitors. You know, it's like
Yeah,
I like that nothing is a touchscreen interface yet. I like.
I
that as
do.
well.
I
There
could
wasn't much
certainly
touchscreen.
dislike it more than I do, but it's always felt wrong to me for some reason.
Okay.
I think just the hull itself is what.
You know what else is kind of cool about this ship is how excited the crew is to go warp 4.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ooh, warp 4, guys. Get
Something
the
that's
warp
taken
4
for
and a
granted in
half.
every other season, in every other series, but in this
And
one, it's like,
Mayweather
woo!
just gets so excited about that. Warp
He's like,
4.
Wait,
Wow.
watch me push this
Neptune
button.
in 6 minutes.
but that gets back to my original point, which is the thing I liked about the show is how they portrayed how everything was kind of the first, right? So it's like they don't know how to deal with any of this shit. Like you see them like go down to that you go down to that cantina thing and like everything is like amazing to them. They're like, oh my god, look at that guy. You know, it's like this guy looks so weird, you know.
So,
It's
I guess the Vulcans never took them off the planet or something. Like it's
No.
Or very few
well,
of them.
well, yeah. I'm guessing they, went around the galaxy maybe, but they didn't go out that far, right? So the whole point is this is going past this is going past all the barriers that they've had previous, right? So Kronos is very far compared to, a lot of the places they've already been to.
Because
so-
Mayweather mentioned he'd spent most grade 2 and 3 getting into Trail Prime, right? Or he's
Yes.
been around and he's been to some
Yeah,
places.
so he's
but-
been around, but he's sitting in a cargo ship. You're not stopping and hanging out everywhere. You're just kind of showing up, dropping your load, and then leaving again, right? Like
just
it's
like being in the womb.
it's a long hauler type thing. It's kind of like being a truck driver and saying you're going to see the country. Well, you see the country, but you see it from the bloody canopy of your truck, and you don't get much. You don't go and see the Grand Canyon because you don't drive through it, right? So it's one of those things, right? So.
Right.
I think that's part of it, but I really like the fact that this show portrays everything is amazing to them, because literally everything is like, even Phlox is like, there's times where Phlox is like, well, I've never seen this before, but this looks cool, and then there's,
he's like eventually.
yeah, is he gonna get better? Eventually,
Maybe.
It's, I also like that kind of nonchalant kind of attitude that Phlox has, and that's one thing we didn't really talk too much about with Phlox, but I like Phlox. I think Phlox is a great character that way. He gives a little bit of comedy without going nuts like Neelix. You know what I mean? Like it's subtle, which I liked with Phlox.
He also had a Galaxy Quest moment. What does he say? He says something and then he smiles really big, and it just sounds like the Galaxy Quest. He sounded exactly like the Galaxy Quest.
Well, I remember the scene because the scene is very unsettling.
I think it's when he's like, "Yeah, I got all my marsupials and I used their poop to make medicine." And he's like, "What's that now?" And he's like, "You got to open up your mind to things." I think I got the clip.
Yeah, he's almost like a hippie.
He's got the starfish on the captain after he got shot too.
Yeah.
If you're going to try to embrace new worlds, you must try to embrace new ideas.
Right. New worlds and new
That's
ideas.
true, though. It's true.
Yeah.
They have to learn. That's the whole point of this voyage. The voyage is to learn how to do this stuff. It's not necessarily the act of doing it. It's learning how to cope in space and deal with new aliens and all this stuff. And they deal with aliens that, let's be honest, are some of the worst aliens when it comes to like threats. Like the Suliban is a terrible race to deal with. Like
Klingons.
The Klingons they're dealing with as well. You know, these are all things that they take for granted in Next Gen and DS9. You know, they're like, oh, those Cardassians, you know, blah blah blah. You know, whereas like with Suliban, they're like, they have no idea what they're doing. They're like, we don't even know what these guys do. Like they're just, we have no idea what their motives are. They don't like us, and we don't know why.
Okay.
You know?
So I've got another thing about the ship, and it's about the chef. You know, what's chef prepared to us for tonight? That bothered me in this whole series. Like I'd like to know the chef. I'd like to know his name or
It's
her
Jonathan Frakes.
It's Jonathan Frakes. Yeah, that's all you need to know.
Well, he gets to be the cat. He plays the chef.
Yeah, you never see the chef. It's kind of almost like a running joke in the series is that they talk about the chef a lot. Actually, they're always mentioning him, but they're not. You never see him.
Yeah, because the whole thing about like they have like there's a private dining room and they're like, hey Tucker, come have dinner with us. He's like, nope, dinner with the boss.
No, I think they looked
Dinner
at
with the
the
boss
and went, we can't do that again. We just can't do that again. So they just left him out.
Yeah, maybe they're like, Neelix, no.
This whole thing where she has to like cut through the breadstick, you know, because Vulcans don't use their hands or whatever.
Well, they don't touch their food. Yeah, they don't use
Vulcans
their hands
don't touch food with their hands.
Yeah.
But in a way, that kind of makes sense, right?
Very logical.
Hands have a lot of crap on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they're onto something. Maybe they never got the COVID.
Maybe
Vulcans.
not. No,
they never got no COVID.
No.
Anyway, we're hard on time here. We really
we
gotta
are.
we have a hard stop in what 20 minutes, less than 20 minutes
or so. Yeah, because the other guys are coming on.
Yeah,
so.
we gotta give the channel to somebody else. So anyway, we keep going. You know, at this point, we're dealing with the fact that they're trying to get to Kronos to deliver this guy. It's more of an ambassador kind of thing. They just want to make sure that they're trying to be nice to the Klingons to keep the peace. I guess is a good way to look at it.
But they lose him.
But they lose him. Yeah, they lose him. He technically gets stolen. He gets kidnapped. Really,
that was a good scene too, though. Actually, with the way they're hidden in the ship and just take him away, gone.
Yeah. They just get him out of there.
In a way, they're almost too overpowered, though. I got the same presence from the Suliban that I did with the Borg when we first were introduced to them, where they're just helpless at them. Like the Borg was such an overpowering entity to the Next Gen crew, and it's almost the same thing. There's almost a hopelessness to it because they're like, wow, like what can we fucking do? We can't really do anything. And then Archer's like, well, we're gonna go get him. That's what we're gonna do, because Archer and his infinite wisdom means that that's a great idea. But it's obviously we would never show if we didn't. But
you lost the Klingon. He's like, I didn't lose him. He was taken.
Yeah, he was taken. That's different, right? I didn't lose the guy, right? So
she's like, you're gonna call command and let them know. He's like, nope, and neither are you. Like,
you're gonna.
There's some interesting things. Like, I was liking Archer more on this rewatch because I'm kind of over how much I don't like his portrayal sometimes, the way he's written sometimes. But I thought he actually works well. Him and T'Pol, they find this groove in this episode that I think carries
Well,
throughout the
especially
series.
later in the series, they definitely get much more into the groove with each other, especially when she ends up, well, second episode, realistically, she ends up, wearing normal clothes and stuff like that. But it's, I think the dynamic, I think you're right, Dave. I think the dynamic with them, it's supposed to be so hostile, but yet by the end of this episode, it's not really that hostile, because he's finally figured out that she's not really there to jeopardize everything he does. She's really useful.
Because after he meets what's her name down here on the planet, and she's like that Sulaban lady or whatever, and she dies here, right? She gives him some information, but she dies almost right away. And then he gets shot in the leg or whatever, and he's like losing consciousness. And the assumption here is, because T'Pol's been arguing with him the whole episode, that she's going to she'll take command of the ship, and she's going to turn it around and go home, and Tucker's like, What do you mean? You ain't apples and oranges. You ain't the commander here.
Apples and oranges.
Yeah. You gotta remember.
Yeah, actually, that's playing in the background right there. That's where they start getting hostile.
His daddy. His daddy was the same way.
His daddy was the same way.
And that's kind of like the whole premise here. She's like, well, whatever. But then,
the thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, in sick bay, where she surprises him, where he's like, okay, Archer. Or he goes to Tucker. He's like, I assume we're on our way back to Earth, and she goes, nope. We're not, she's like, as acting captain.
But as acting captain, I was obligated to anticipate your wishes.
And he says, as acting captain, you could do.
As acting captain, you could have done whatever the hell you wanted to do.
Right. I think that they're this is kind of where they build their trust with each other. She surprises him in a way he never anticipated.
I liked how Trip and T'Pol were kind of arguing. I like the fact that there was a lot of energy with the two of them going that way. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously it's foreshadowing the fact that eventually they're going to have a relationship and stuff like that. But I like the fact that they really are burning at each other. Like they're really burning at each other, but she's not showing the emotion, obviously, because she's not going to. But I think it's kind of neat that she pretty much does a 180 on everything, and she says, no, I'm still, even though I don't agree with what's going on, I still have to anticipate what Archer was going to do, and I followed through with that because that's my job, right? So I think in a way that's where the respects. Well, she didn't put it like that, but
he's like, you totally didn't have to do that because this happens between Janeway and Chakotay a couple times, where Chakotay goes the other way from what Janeway wants, and Janeway will never forgive him, but he had all the right to do it, right?
Well, in reality, if we were talking earlier about how like Archer just randomly grabs Phlox and says, "You're now our medical officer." Well, that was no different than Janeway. Let's be honest. Janeway literally, obviously it's a different circumstance, but Janeway put Chakotay as second in command, a guy who literally betrayed the Federation. Like, that makes no sense at all. Like, I can understand him earning it eventually, but being just thrown right into that makes no sense. But anyway, it is what it is, I guess.
That get ready for the Voyager podcast.
I'm not doing Voyager. I'm just telling you right now. You're not going to want me on a Voyager podcast. So,
But
anyway, they eventually get him.
Yeah, they get him, and then they go on this. They say we're gonna follow the warp trail. They learn how to track the warp decay or whatever.
That's right. They track the warp. I can't remember what they called it.
Again, who helps? Who defines that?
T'Pol.
That's right.
She's like your shitty sensors. Which a Vulcan, Vulcan toys are more sophisticated.
Vulcan children play with toys that are more sophisticated.
Yeah, she's just like always throwing shade at them. She's
is a burn, but also logical.
She's like,
so it's a little bit
out here with a bunch of like throwbacks, basically, just trying to keep up.
What she's saying is that she can be a hero all the time. Getting them through stuff.
Yeah, because she's just like
realistically she can, right? She knows what's going on as well. She understands what this is. She's done this before. Yeah. At least that's the impression I get from her anyway.
I totally agree with you, Jody. And that's what drives me crazy about Archer is that, he's like a kid, Kevin, like you said.
At the beginning. Yeah,
because, you tell your kids don't do this because you're going to hurt yourself, and they do it freaking
Don't touch the burner. It's hot.
Well, it's even the way the Vulcans look at each other as like they're about to launch the ship earlier in the episode, and they're just like, "Oh shit!" Like,
Yeah.
are we really letting them go into space? These guys.
We're gonna have to
guys-
fix
How
their
much
mess up. We're
explaining
gonna
we're
have to
gonna
take
have
them
to
to the
do?
hospital. Like it's just gonna be bad.
Now these action shots, there's an action shot happening in the background there. The special effects on this show, I think, were fantastic for a
they
pilot
were good.
episode.
It looked great.
The only one I had a problem with was the Sulaban going underneath the door at the beginning. That was
looked
a little.
that looked a little. It didn't look like Mr. Fantastic in the movie, but like
No. The worst was the sweet spot and the little flip. That he does going up.
That was bad. That was completely
sweet spot. Are you talking about the sweet spot?
And this scene here where Archer is like they're both trying to grab the gun and the guy literally like just goes brilliant. And he like starts grabbing.
Yeah, he just like it's kind of like that's.
But
gross.
that was cool to see the fact that they're almost like they remind me of the T-1000 from the Terminator 2 movie, right? Like it's like they're literally unstoppable. Like, and that's what I liked about the fact that they introduced this. These guys are going to be a threat through the entire series, and even at the end of the series, they're like, we don't know what to do with these guys. Like they're literally hard to deal with. Yeah, well, the Sulaban they eventually deal with, but I don't want to give it away. But at the beginning of the series, it's very much like the Borg stuff, right? Where it's like, oh, well, it's very unsettling because we really didn't defeat them. We kind of tricked them, but we didn't defeat them. So there's going to be more. It's going to be a bigger problem, and it becomes a bigger problem later. There's a lot more Sulaban in the future, but and then obviously we get other ones as well. But the Andorians get introduced soon as well, which I love. The Andorians are fantastic.
Not soon enough. We gotta wait like 20 episodes till they show up. Or something.
It's not that long.
It's too long.
The first big episode for them is
they show up in Shadows of Pajam, which is the 15th episode. Okay,
15th. Okay, yeah. So we got a little ways yet, but I think you'll really enjoy that, Kevin, especially as a guy who's a fan of the old school stuff as well. Right?
This
I think you're really gonna
series
enjoy
is
it.
completely saved by Shram.
Yes, Shram is fantastic.
Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffrey Combs, who has been a character in every Star Trek, really, except for the original. But he's played many characters, and he does them all really well, I think.
He was almost
anyway, guys, we got to wrap this up. So, what are our final thoughts on this episode? Kevin, how about you start first?
I thought it was good, solid. The only thing I really dislike is Archer and the dynamic, but the episode, the story, it's all solid. It's good. It's good.
Yeah. Now, are we planning on rating these things, Dave, or are we just watching?
Yeah, we're gonna rate them.
We're gonna rate them. Okay.
I have one question before we get to ratings, though.
Please.
What was going on when they finally get to Kronos and they meet with the Klingons, right? And they bring in Tiny Lister here, and everything's said in Klingon. So I'm not fluent in my Klingon. I'm sorry, I'm not up, even though I won the Geetal challenge last night on Locutors of Trek. But like where like they pull something out of here and they look inside his blood, and then they find something there, and then they're like all laughing. What was he carrying? What was the thing that they wanted? Does no one know?
I think it was I don't know. Guessing.
I don't know.
Limerick? Who knows?
Yeah, maybe it was like a sea shanty. I don't know.
Okay, because it was
I
very
don't know
confusing.
if they ever explained that, quite honestly.
I think it was just some kind of technology blueprints or something they needed,
Yeah, you see this thing
he was carrying something in his DNA. Like he had something in there, but they don't really explain what it was, I don't think.
I don't think they do.
Again, this is another thing like the temporal stuff. Like they add a lot to these first two episodes, but they don't.
But that's
really
a good question though, because you got to know what Klingons are about. Like if you don't know Star Trek lore behind this and what's going on.
If this is the first show you've ever watched, you are so confused.
Yeah, so like the idea that this was going to bring back original series people is confusing to me because it's like it doesn't seem like it's really.
I never got the impression that's what this was for. I thought this was to bring in new people.
Yeah.
The people that are riding the wave of Star Wars, because Star Wars was huge at this point, and Star Trek was dying down. We had a lot of franchise fatigue coming on at this point. We've been through two major series during this time period, DS9 as well as Voyager. And we had the movies as well.
Next gen movies they're in the middle of their run here. Like Nemesis won't come out till the next year.
Yes.
But yeah,
Which is still a better movie than everybody makes it out to be. But anyway, that's
Still
fine.
bad movie.
I already explained that in the other.
yeah, we talked about that in a whole podcast series.
Which somebody I'm sure can check the links to find
What
out.
was the worst Star Trek movie? Well, Jody and I.
Insurrection.
I say Insurrection.
Insurrection is a terrible movie. I agree.
I like Insurrection. I enjoy it every time I watch it.
It was a
The
it was
motion
an
picture
episode.
is the
It
worst.
was a long episode.
Yeah, the problem with Insurrection was Insurrection never should have been a movie. It should have just been an episode. I completely
Actually,
But Nemesis is
the
bad.
worst movie was probably the motion picture.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Vigor.
yeah. Nemesis.
How
is a
could
bad
anybody
movie.
look at that plaque and think Vigor is what it makes out to be? Like that always just bit me hard on that one. I was so pissed off. Anyway, Dave,
It's
do you
right.
have a spreadsheet for this? Because you usually
New
do.
spreadsheet up and running, Jody. What do you?
Dave is the podcast master.
Yes, I've got
I
it
can't even
going.
see this, so I got to make a big screen here. Okay, there we
there
go. Broken Bow. All right, for me, I'm gonna give this. You know what? It's solid, but it's definitely got some faults. I'm gonna give this an 8.
Hey, Adam.
You know what? Not if I pretended I didn't know this series and I hadn't watched it before, I think I would have given it a 9 because I would have been hooked.
Okay. I as a two-parter, like overall enjoyment, I think this is fine. I think it's about an 8 for me.
I think it drags a bit, but
It's
overall,
an 8 as well
it's
for
a
me.
solid-
It's
All
a
right,
solid start.
It is a
There's
solid start. It gets a little worse. I'm not going to lie. There's a couple.
Might be a 9 or a 9.5 without Archer.
Yeah. And this was written by Rick Berman and Brandon Braga, as is next week's episode.
Yep.
And 2151.
And aired just over 20 years ago, guys. 20
Just over
years
20
ago.
years ago. 2001.
I didn't have kids. I
me
drank,
either.
I drank more then because I could, and now I can't. Yeah,
I hadn't even
think about
turned
it. 20 years ago,
19 yet.
guys. Who are you 20 years ago? You know,
I was running a movie theater, big megaplex.
there you go. There you go.
I was pretty much doing exactly what I'm doing right now. I just started at my current job 20 years ago.
Yeah, but your kids weren't around then.
No kids.
No kids.
Yeah, so there you go. So,
And Jody's next week's episode is called Fight or Flight.
fight or flight. Yes.
Would you remember this one?
You know what? I just watched it. This is the. Hold on. Let me just get
It says the Enterprise.
Oh, you
remember,
got
it's not the Enterprise. It's just
No, it's
Enterprise.
That's
Finds an abandoned ship filled with corpses which appear to have been used for an experiment. That's the premise.
right. Oh yes. Okay. Yep.
So
Well, that was a good
This is a good Phlox episode, actually.
Yeah. Actually, I'm excited about this series. I'm excited to get back to it. This is going to be.
You know what, guys?
We're
I'm very
back.
glad that
We're-
you're all with us.
we're in the 2150s.
I figure it's about time I watched it.
You know what, Kevin?
Kevin, welcome to the club.
Out of everybody, I'm most proud of you, Kevin, because I never thought we would drag you into this. I never thought it. And you know what? You've come in open arms.
You know what though?
I salute you, sir.
I talk a lot of shit about this series, but I really shouldn't since I have never really seen it.
You know what? And that's part of the problem because a lot of people they talk about it saying it's terrible because they heard that, but they haven't actually experienced it. If you go through this entire series, Kevin, and then you tell me it's absolutely terrible, I'm with you.
It's not.
You know, that's fine. So, you know, it is what it is, right? We all have
We
our own
also have
opinion.
all this other Star Trek to compare it to.
We
that's
do,
come out
Dave, and I think
since.
maybe you should tell people this.
I will. Jody, thank you. That was a good segue. Well, you know, like in comparison to like Star Trek, the original series, which we talked about, Jody, Adam, myself, Kevin was on a bunch of them, Ashley Millard on a bunch of them, my dad. We talked about all 79 episodes over there of original series.
That was a run, guys.
Episodes I wouldn't have watched otherwise. I don't think.
It's true. I'm with you on this one, and maybe that's how Kevin feels about this series.
Right. So, and now I feel like I have a more holistic look at that whole show. So we did that. Check that out. You can also check out. We talked about all the Star Trek movies. Like that was almost at the beginning of the pandemic, but those are all.
That was a while ago.
On Tuesdays, we continue to watch Star Trek Deep Space Nine. All of those episodes in order. We're into season 4. Tomorrow we're talking about The Muse at 9:00 Eastern, along with Jaemeel Robinson.
Jake, right?
It's a Jake.
It's a Jake episode.
It's a Jake episode. Anyway, but we're talking about it, so we're gonna rate it. So of course, tune in for that, as well as on Thursdays.
Kevin will be there for that.
On Thursdays, we've been talking about Star Trek Star Trek Discovery, along with Adam and Michael Chan.
How's season 4 so far?
It's pretty good.
I haven't watched any of season 4 yet. So
far so good. We I think all the episodes we've enjoyed more or less. Just I think some more than others. But we're going to be talking about the newest episode this Thursday, which is called what is it called, Adam? It's called All Is Possible.
You're the producer, Dave.
It's called All Is Possible, and it's great. We don't know. Maybe we'll see. It's not out yet.
I have high hopes for this week. It's going to be fast paced. I can tell you that.
It's going to be fast paced, and so we're talking about that. Plus, we were talking about Star Trek Prodigy. That's been on hiatus for a little bit now. As Star Trek
it just came out. How can it be on hiatus?
Well, they took a break. I think because Discovery came out. I think they didn't want to have them released.
They don't want to have both of them running at the same time.
So we did the first 5 episodes. Davin Skellhorn and I and Jessica Chan. We'll be picking that up again in January to talk about the rest of Star Trek Prodigy season 1, and Star Trek Lower Decks. Earlier this year, we talked about that whole new season 2 that came out. And in the near future, supposedly Star Trek Picard. I guess will be in February. We'll be talking.
I'm
about
looking forward to it.
So
I don't think anybody else is, but I am.
I am.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Strange New Worlds.
I think you two are probably
Strange New Worlds. I think will be good anyway.
Well, we'll see.
That's the one I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and then we also have Star Trek Radio Theater, which is our show where we do like the script reenactments and things like that. We just did one fairly recently, doing Star Trek Lower Decks Wage Douche. We're going to be doing a new one, Star Trek First Contact, on December 19th. Check that out. Bringing Zephram Cochrane.
I never get invited to any of these anymore. I just want to point that out.
I was like,
is it because I do too good of a Scotty? Is that what it is?
And there was no Scotty, Jody. So there was,
I understand.
Yeah, it was a lack of Scottish characters. So therefore, you were typecast, unfortunately.
That's fine. Sometimes you have to be good at one thing, then be mediocre at a bunch.
Look at Michael Chan though. Oh my God.
He's a busy boy. He's a busy boy for sure.
Yeah, but all of those add up to 10 lines. So he's
which this is all First Contact, right? Yeah, okay.
It was all First Contact. Yeah. Adam Woodward playing Data and others. So yeah, excited to bring that to you. Excited to bring that on December 19th. And then what else do we got? We have Super Mater Brothers podcast in our channel where we talk about stuff that's not related to Star Trek movie and TVs. Notably, we're doing Survivor 41 right now, every Wednesday at 9:30. Jaemeel Robinson, Jeff, and I, along with Big Brother. We talk about the Marvel stuff. We talk about things like Eternals. We'll talk about Spider-Man No Way Home soon and Hawkeye, as well as all kinds of other shows. Hoping to do Tiger King.
You're not going to do Hawkeye, are you?
We are going to do Hawkeye.
I've heard bad things.
I like it. I'm liking Hawkeye. So,
are you? Okay, good.
Yeah. Having technical issues. That's Josh Shields. Okay. And I think that's it. Trivial Debates, our monthly show. We are movies, TV, sports in a game show format. Max Duda set to host the next one. Jody just hosted the one for November. If you haven't checked that out yet, that was a lot of fun. But Max is going to be hosting the next one. I don't have 3 contestants yet. Everyone wants to be on it, and that's it. That's all I got to plug right now.
All right. Well, guys, I think this was a first good outing. Hopefully, the future ones won't be as long because I don't think
it always takes longer to talk about the 2 episodes.
And also we had to talk about all the characters. Once we establish them, we don't need to talk about them that much again. So that's good. Anyway, gentlemen, I think that's it for the night. Unless anybody else has anything, Dave, do you have a way to end it for us? I'm sure you have some sort of soundbite you want to use.
Oh, I'm sure I do.
You're just itching to hit a button. I just know it.
You know what, Jody? We can't be
bird call.
We can't. It should. Where's my?
We
Hoshi?
should end it with a bird call. Yeah.
Where's my Hoshi bird call? But no, I like how he ends the episode. He's like, "Do we go around this ion storm, Captain?" He's like, "We can't be afraid of the wind, Ensign."
We can't be afraid of the wind, Ensign.
All right,
that is a good line. I like it. There you go. We got to click out anyway.